So glad you're with us for the Tuesday edition of the Three Martini Lunch. And Jim, it's a very busy day. We're going to get a House vote, I think, today on releasing the Epstein files. I'm still not sure why we need a vote now that Trump's in favor of it, but I guess we're going to go through that process anyway. It's going to pass, probably by a wide margin. We're also going to take a closer look at Democrat accusing Democrat of election malfeasance, which is a nice move here. That's against normal interest. So a retiring Illinois Democratic congressman decided to announce he wasn't going to run for re-election on the filing deadline day. So his chief of staff could be the only Democratic candidate. So we'll dive into that. And yes, we're already talking about 2028. And as Jim has written, nearly 20% of the Senate Democrats are somewhat or very interested in running for president in 2028. So, Jim, I don't know if we're going to need the double debate nights like we did in 2020 when we had, I don't know, 24 candidates or something. But buckle up. It's going to be pretty full, it seems.
Oh, I got a lot to say on that one. But I think the first thing that jumps to mind when you look at all of those Senate Democrats who are at least thinking about it, not ruling it out, leaving the door open, or in some cases, very transparently going for it. More competition for our good friend, Irving Schmidlap,
yes,
who is running for Senate in Colorado, despite the fact that he does not exist. He's always been a brave crusader for the non-existent American community. Non-existent Americans face more discrimination than any other group just because they don't actually exist. And that just seems, unfair. So Irving, good luck to you. He's running for Senate, but I imagine if whether he wins or loses, and by the way, every now and then I do scour the write-in totals to see if any of our listeners have written in for Irving Schmidlap. Schmidlap 2028 seems like a near certainty. Whether he's a senator or not a senator, I guess he's going to be not a senator because he doesn't exist. But I do there's a non-zero chance that somehow he gets enough write-ins and he ends up becoming a senator, and there's this massive issue. Like, what do we do for a guy who doesn't actually exist?
Man, remember Rush had Operation Chaos in 2008? That could be the Three Martini Lunch project for 2026.
This would be Operation Existential Chaos.
Oh, man.
Do any of us exist? That kind of it.
All right. Well, for those of you who do exist, we would appreciate it if you would continue existing. And in order for that to happen, you need to stay in good health. And for that to happen, you need to visit a doctor once in a while. And so ZocDoc is the easiest way to find and book an appointment with a good doctor. ZocDoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare high-quality in-network doctors and click to instantly book an appointment.
With ZocDoc, you can filter for doctors who take your insurance, see if they're located nearby. That was a very big factor in my looking for an optometrist. See if they're a good fit for any medical need you might have, and see if they are highly rated by verified patients. Once you find the right doctor, you get to see their actual appointment openings, choose a time slot that works for you, and click instantly to book a visit. Now, appointments made through ZocDoc often happen fast, typically within just 24 to 72 hours, and more often than not, you can even get same-day appointments.
Yeah, and check the reviews. Those are really helpful for me when I was looking for an ENT. But whether it's sleep trouble, stress, back pain, whatever the condition might be, you're going to find out whether people have dealt with the same things you have and what kind of response they got from these doctors, and you'll be able to tell, is this the right person for me? So check it out. Stop putting off those doctor's appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/3ML to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/3ML. ZocDoc.com/3ML. All right, Jim, as mentioned, the House, I think, is supposed to vote today on the discharge petition to release the Epstein files. If it's not today, it's going to be very, very soon. But we already have kind of the first casualty, if you want to put it that way, in terms of the documents that have already been released, because House Democrats, House Republicans have released some documents. Democrats very selectively, Republicans are like, here's 23,000 pages or whatever it is. Knock yourself out. Meanwhile, Politico reporting that former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers, in a statement Monday, said he would be stepping back from public life and expressed deep regret for past messages with the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein in the wake of new revelations about the extent of their relationship. Quote, I am deeply ashamed of my actions and recognize the pain they have caused, he told Politico. I take full responsibility for my misguided decision to continue communicating with Mr. Epstein. While continuing to fulfill my teaching obligations, I will be stepping back from public commitments as one part of my broader effort to rebuild trust and repair relationships with the people closest to me, unquote. Emails revealed that Summers, who served as Treasury Secretary under President Bill Clinton and a top advisor to President Barack Obama, repeatedly sought advice from Epstein on romantically pursuing a woman he referred to as his mentee. Epstein, in one of the messages, referred to himself as the prominent economist's quote-unquote wingman. So, Jim, this is obviously not good. Usually if you have a mentee, this is someone, first of all, who's under your authority, and also is probably quite a bit younger than Larry Summers would be my guess here. And so this is obviously sleazy behavior. Bad that happened. Good that it's coming out, and good that he's stepping back. That's exactly what should happen here.
Yeah, so, Larry Summers was, I'm going to say he's one of my favorite Democrats, but he was one of the folks who was publicly saying in the opening months of the Biden administration, all of the spending you're doing is going to set off a round of inflation. And almost the entire rest of the Democratic Party said, no, that's nonsense. There's nothing to worry about. And of course, it set off inflation. So I found him a useful person to cite to say this inflationary spasm was useful and it was predicted by economists like Larry Summers. With that said, this is just unbelievably skeevy behavior. And I raised the question in today's Morning Jolt. First of all, on June 30th, 2008, Jeffrey Epstein pled guilty to state charges of solicitation of prostitution and solicitation of prostitution with a minor, and in that case, it involved a 14-year-old girl, Megyn Kelly, for any notices of people wondering whether that counts as real pedophilia or something like that. 14 is really darn young, right? People knew this. This was public record. This was out there, right? This was not a question of like rumors or something like that. And this idea that like, oh, I had no idea. No, like he had already pled guilty. There's no, then the thing that you're getting involved with somebody who's your mentee. You mentioned all the reasons that is really bad news, and he's seeking romantic advice from Jeffrey bleeping Epstein. Like,
yeah,
what is this guy, Ciro de Bergerac, right? Like, this is the guy who's going to help you close the deal, just absolutely bizarre. And as I mentioned, like, there's hundreds of messages. These guys were close, and it just, you can't look at Larry Summers the same way after this. Like, what is wrong with you? How did you, interest in your mentee, look, that's not a good thing, but it's a human nature. Okay, fine, young, attractive woman or something like that. But the idea you're going to pursue her and you choose Epstein as the guy to advise and so the question is, I think we're not talking about putting Summers in jail over this. We're not talking about but like we're saying, like, should you still be in a position where you're overseeing students? Probably not. Probably now we can't look at you the same way. The statute of limitations on moral judgment has not run out, and I don't think that doesn't mean all of his economic things are taken. And some people have pointed out that people who vehemently disagree with Summers' economic perspectives are among those who are coming along with pitchforks and torches and are roasting. And I like, okay, but like Summers made the choice to remain friends with Epstein. Summers made the choice to communicate with him, and he made the choice to say, hey, I'm really interested in this young woman. I want to talk to Jeffrey Epstein about this. I'm sorry. I have no sympathy for you, man. That's all on you. You made those decisions. I am glad you're receding from public life. And I don't know how, I'm not all that interested in seeing you come back. We'll see how you do. You're doing financially fine. You can go into quiet retirement and maybe think about all the different way you've embarrassed yourself, you've embarrassed your family, you've embarrassed anybody who knew you by the actions you took. And this is what I talked a little bit earlier this week about, if you're a rich, powerful, famous person who was buddies with Epstein and you're getting some reputational damage, look, there was that conviction back in 2008. This was not this didn't come out of nowhere. Oh, I had no idea. Sorry. This is apparently more open secret than Harvey Weinstein. So sorry, pal. No sympathy here.
Yeah, it's incredible because, that was back during the 2000s, right? And then you got stories like Katie Couric who went to a party at his house in like 2011, 2012 or something. She's like, I had no idea. Really? That's a pretty prominent story even back then, as I recall. And so Summers says, I'll keep teaching. I don't think that's going to ultimately be up to him. And I wouldn't be surprised if that opportunity ends as well. But that's not up to us either. But we'll see what happens as more people comb through these pages and more stuff ultimately gets released here, because there was the House investigation, which I think is the paperwork we've gotten so far. And then ultimately we're going to get the DOJ paperwork here relatively soon. But yeah, we're going to learn more really unpleasant details about more people, I think. All right, well, let's talk about something better than that, because not only do we want you to get to a good doctor, we want you to be able to help take care of yourself on your own, too, a little bit. And we're all trying to feel healthy, and drinking more water, getting your steps in, taking our vitamins are all important steps in that direction. But here's what most people miss: your liver health. It affects literally everything: your energy, your digestion, and so much more. And it's time to show your liver some love. And to do that, we've got Dose for your liver. Dose is a clinically backed liquid liver health supplement, which you can take in a daily 2-ounce shot and tastes like fresh squeezed orange juice. Dose cleanses the liver of unwanted stressors that's slowing that liver down, but it's got 0 sugar, 0 junk, and 0 calories.
Now, you might be thinking, well, why should I care about my liver so much? Well, it processes everything you consume and performs more than 500 daily functions. We're talking about energy production, digestion, fat metabolism, vitamin storage. And when your liver is overworked, you're going to feel it. So when you start drinking Dose daily, you're going to reduce that sluggishness. So you're going to get rid of those midday crashes, you're going to support your metabolism, and it will even aid your daily digestion.
So if you're ready to give your liver the support it deserves, head to dosedaily.co/3ml or enter 3ml to get 35% off the first month of your subscription. Your body does so much for you. Let's do something for it. That's dosedaily.co/3ml for 35% off your first month's subscription. All right, Jim, on to our next good martini here, and this is some Democrat versus Democrat fighting in the House of Representatives, and it all centers on Chuy Garcia. Now, this Chuy is not a Wookiee. He doesn't co-pilot the Millennium Falcon. He is a long-time...
Beat me to the jokes. Good job, Greg.
Political figure in Chicago. There was one time he was running for mayor against Rahm Emanuel, and I didn't know who Chuy Garcia was, but I'm like, well, he's probably better than Rahm Emanuel. But Rahm Emanuel won. And so Chuy Garcia has decided he's not going to run for re-election, which is certainly his right to do. But he did not announce his decision to not seek re-election until the filing deadline. And so that meant that the only person who had filed for this race on the Democratic side in a deep blue district is his chief of staff, Patty Garcia, who, as far as I know, is not a relative, but I don't know that for sure.
That's his chief of staff.
Yes, that's his chief of staff, but I just don't know if they're related. But then this Washington Democratic Congresswoman, Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez, is now leading a rebuke of Chuy Garcia in the House of Representatives. And so a couple different clips here. First of all, other Illinois House Democrats from the Chicago area are not happy. Jonathan Jackson, who's the son of Jesse Jackson, says that Gluesenkamp-Perez should stay in her lane. And others have said so as well. Jan Schakowsky, who's also retiring, thank you, who's wrong on absolutely everything, says this is shameful to call out Chuy Garcia for this. Here's what Schakowsky said on the House floor.
I say shame on you for deciding that this is the issue that you, who have no idea about the role that Chuy Garcia has played in the city of Chicago and continues to play in the city of Chicago.
Yeah, and what she was talking about was his efforts to obstruct ICE in apprehending people who are in the country illegally, potentially many of them criminals. Here's Gluesenkamp-Perez, though, explaining that, maybe you like this guy, but we should have some standards around here.
There are claims that this was not the work that we were sent to do here. Then what gives us the right to be here if not being sent here? There is a premise here. We have to be endowed with trust, and that has to be reciprocal with our voters. And I would argue that there is a very loud demand, a fervent, clear call by Americans right now for accountability and transparency. And it's not just about the Epstein files, it's all of it. They want us to stop this fight and be honest and deliberate and respectful, to humbly serve. That is what real leadership is.
Yes, I think most people would agree with that. Now, this is not an expulsion. This is not even a censure.
Yeah.
This is a resolution of disapproval. So it's a little tap on the wrist there. And you've got folks like Hakeem Jeffries saying, I don't support this so-called resolution of disapproval, and I strongly support Congressman Chuy Garcia. So, but I think it's already passed the first hurdle in the House of Representatives, and in the end, not much is going to happen here. He's pretty much going to get what he wants because I don't think they're going to change the deadline for filing for this race. But good to see a little public rebuke for one of her own there.
First of all, kudos to Congresswoman Perez. Did you notice Schakowsky kind of inching her way up the aisle in the background of that? I was kind of wondering things are going to, pretty feisty there. Greg, I like to say on this podcast, sometimes, as the Washington Post slogan says, democracy dies in darkness. And then sometimes someone attacks it with a chainsaw in broad daylight, and absolutely no one does anything about it. Congressman Garcia, first of all, apparently he does this because of his cardiologist. Now, by the way, I have a hard time believing that it suddenly became an issue that he should not run for another term because of his health. But let's assume the cardiologist, wow, things have gotten a lot worse. Hopefully he found the cardiologist through ZocDoc. And he says, I can't run again. The right thing to do is to announce this well before the filing deadline and to say, I will endorse my chief of staff. I strongly support. Those are a lot of advantages for somebody. This whole thing where I'm going to withhold the news till right before, so it's too late for anybody else. Democrats keep insisting that they are the defenders of democracy, right? And in order to defend democracy, they have to pack the Supreme Court and they have to impeach justices they don't like. They have to do all these other things. But this is a giant example of how they don't really believe in democracy when it proves inconvenient. I realize there are 435 House districts. I've covered the House a lot. I know it's not easy to pay attention to what's going on in every last little district. But this is really egregious, right? The people of this district, yes, we know there's a 99.9% chance that they're going to vote for a Democrat. And we know that, honestly, when it comes to most votes and most issues, these Democrats are pretty indistinguishable. They're all going to vote the same way. Yeah. But the people of that district deserve a choice. They do not deserve to go to the polling place and have only one candidate listed because of that. Now, I assume that the filing deadline is the same for all parties. I don't know if you could do a late edition of it being a write-in candidate, but these are not family heirlooms. And if anybody wants to object to political positions being handed down from father to son, it's Jesse Jackson Jr. A couple of days ago in the Jolt, I went through the list but there are a lot in both parties. But, there was this whole thing about no kings at this big rally for Democrats. And a lot of the people who spoke at these rallies were members of Congress whose parents had been members of Congress themselves, or they'd been state assemblymen, or they'd been mayors, or they'd had other things. Yes, we understand family names are a big help in politics. So these people don't want kings, but they do want political offices to be family heirlooms that are passed down from parent to child, or an aristocracy, something where you're born into an elite political class and you get to stay there your whole life. It just is infuriating. Good for Congresswoman Perez for calling this out. And I think the resolution, again, no one's saying expel him. No one's saying put him in jail for this. Just issue a resolution saying this is a pretty crappy thing to do and you should not do this to your constituents. And apparently this is to Democrats, unacceptable. You can't, we dare not criticize Chewy. I'm just going to call him Chewy for all the Star Wars fans out there. We dare not criticize him because, it might distract from, Trump is bad. And that's the only message we can ever focus on around here.
Yeah, no doubt about it. The other Chewie, the one from Star Wars, he's
he'd
not
pull
an
somebody's
American.
arms out. That's what he would do, kid.
Not an American, not a resident of that district. Whatever the constitutional requirements are.
I'd vote for him.
That Chewie was always on the right side of every issue. He was faithful to every position he ever took, and always followed through on what he promised to do.
Not only a war hero. While we're on the topic of aristocracy and kings, a princess did not give him the medal that he deserved at the ceremony. But by the way, if you happen to have watched that TV series Andor, it really, and then you put in Rogue One, the entire effort to destroy the Death Star was all these people. Luke and Han show up 10 minutes before the end. Hey, I'll help. And everybody loves them. Somewhere in the background, there should have been some survivor from the Andor series who's what the F, man? Nobody's mentioning Andor. Nobody's mentioning all these people who died in Rogue One. Yeah, so.
Yeah, amazing. And the fact that Chewie stayed loyal to the rebel cause despite being snubbed with the medal.
Yeah, you know.
Even shows his character. So he'd be great. I wouldn't understand a word he said, but I know he'd vote the right way.
He even stood up when the X-Wing Rebel Vets for Truth came out with those attack ads. It was so unacceptable.
Oh, man, that's fantastic. Well, I don't know how good Chewy was, either Chewy really, at keeping track of their money. But if you think you have a solid handle on your budget, maybe your spreadsheet says you should have an extra $1,000 left over each month or whatever it is. Well, sometimes you're like, well, that's not happening. So where's all this money going? Well, Rocket Money helps you track every dollar, uncover hidden spending, and take control of your finances, because Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings.
Now, Rocket Money will not tell you when the filing deadline is to run for Congress, but it lays out all your total financial pictures, including bill due dates and paydays. They can analyze your accounts to find the best time each month to put away extra money. And they'll even try to negotiate lower bills for you. The app automatically scans your bills to find opportunities to save, and they'll even talk to customer service so that you don't have to.
Rocket Money has saved users more than $2.5 billion, including more than $880 million in canceled subscriptions alone. Their 10 million members save up to $740 per year when they use all of the app's premium features. So cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/martini today. That's rocketmoney.com/martini. All right, Jim, it is 2025. We just got through with the elections for this year. It's almost a year until the midterms, and yet many people who serve in the United States Senate are already licking their chops and perhaps already putting plans together for a 2028 presidential campaign. You wrote about this for the Corner at National Review. The list includes Connecticut Senator Chris Murphy, Cory Booker of New Jersey, who was one of those who was among the 24 or so back in 2020. Mark Kelly of Arizona has been visiting some of the early states. And remember, he was Barack Obama's secret choice, well, secret for a while, choice to be vice president when Biden hit the bricks. Arizona's other senator, Ruben Gallego, who's been in the Senate for, about 10, 15 minutes, has already been visiting some of the early states. And then, of course, Amy Klobuchar, who has run before. And Chris Van Hollen, heaven help us, is potentially thinking about this as well. So, Jim, there's only 47 Democrats, and that's, 9 of them? So, the old saying is that every senator wakes up in the morning, looks in the mirror, and sees a future president. But on the Democratic side, it seems to be pretty true.
Almost literally. It's more than 19%, coming up close to 20. So I came up and discovered this over the context of, okay, Democrats and the progressive grassroots are really upset with Chuck Schumer. Well, if you want to replace Chuck Schumer, you need an alternative. You cannot beat something with nothing unless you're a crazy House Republicans. You want to get rid of Kevin McCarthy and then spend 3 weeks bickering about who should be the new Speaker of the House. Democrats, call them dumb. They're not going to make this mistake, right? They're not going to get rid of Chuck Schumer and have no leader for a period of time. They need to have an alternative. While theoretic, so the question is, who can you unify as an alternative? Now, the other problem is that you could be Senate Majority Leader and run for president at the same time. Bob Dole did this back in 1996. For you young listeners, it did not go well. Eventually, Dole resigned from the Senate. They had a special, but it was one of those things like, these are two hard jobs. Running for president is very, very hard. Being Senate Majority Leader is very, very hard. Different skill sets, and it's probably really hard to do both at the same time. Really, really hard to do both well at the same time. So if you're thinking of running for president, you're probably not a serious option as Senate Majority Leader. So there's 9 that you can't do. The other thing which kind of gets me is that none of us have a perfect crystal ball, but I don't see any of these 9 taking off. There are different levels of political talent. Yes, Ruben Gallego has indeed been in the Senate for 20 minutes. Okay, no, he got elected last year. But, he actually does talk about, first, he's from a swing state. He's Latino, and he talks about the American dream in a way that I think really resonates with Latino audiences. He talked about being, the American dream is owning a great big truck and having your own business and any contract. When he talks about that stuff, I think he does a better job than the typical Democrat. But just going down the list, Chris Murphy wants it bad, and he's also trying to do this whole thing where we need a political revolution. And Greg, the last time a revolutionary came from the state of Connecticut, I think, was the 1770s. That's a Shout out to Ken Burns, the American Revolution series on PBS these days. Cory Booker, he ran before. I don't see what's happened since then that's going to make Democrats say, "Oh,
He set the filibuster record, Jim.
yeah, woo!" Yeah, I'm sorry. Kelly, first of all, he has that really cheesy thing where he did that supplement ad over in China, which I thought was kind of creepy. And if you didn't come in first in the Veep stakes. And you could argue he'd be a better choice than Tim Walz, but that's a very low bar to clear. Are Democrats clamoring for Mark Kelly? I don't see it, but I suppose that's one of the reasons these guys choose to run. Amy Klobuchar is apparently thinking about it again. Visited New Hampshire. Chris Van Hollen, whirling dervish of raw political charisma, visited Iowa. Slotkin of Michigan, lucky you for your old home state. If nothing else, she's a fresh face. You could say she has not run before. Apparently, Gillibrand wants to do it again. I for all of these people, I don't see what are the Democratic primary voters are not looking at this and saying, if only we'd nominated Gillibrand back in 2020. That woman could have gotten her. I just don't see it. And then, the last name is Raphael Warnock, who apparently a bunch of Democrats were like, "Oh, if Biden hadn't run, he would have run." He's from an important state, pretty good speaker as a preacher. I don't think he's got a great record in the Senate, but think about it. None of these guys are at more than 3% in New Hampshire. Most of these people are really not well known outside of their own states. So I just kind of, I think one of the reasons our politics are bad is that people see their elected office as a stepping stone to another one, and they don't focus on the job that they have. I think beginning of 2027, the presidential race is going to start, and you're going to see people jumping in and announcements and all that stuff. And as you mentioned, the ridiculousness of the Democrats, so many candidates in 2020, they couldn't all appear on the same stage on the same night, so they had to do a 2-part series. Folks, you're not going anywhere. You're a really little known Senate who does not stand out. And then you got into these, the other things, if you do decide to run for president, the point of a presidential debate is to draw distinctions between yourself and the other candidates. So people don't get to vote for more than one candidate. So you have to say, I am the best candidate. I'm better than all these other people on stage, and here's why. During the 2021, Cory Booker would always jump in and say, whoa, let's not bicker like this. This is what the Republicans want. Disagreement is what a presidential debate is about. You can't all be kumbaya. Aren't we all swell? Because you need to say, this is why I'm the best choice. So I am looking at this forthcoming Democratic presidential primary with exasperation. Now, maybe not all these people, maybe some of these people look at it and say, you know what, I'm not going to be able to raise the money. I'm not going to be a real, they could change. But the fact that almost 20% of Senate Democrats are thinking about running for president in 2028, not a great sign for the forthcoming presidential race.
You know who loves this? Patrick Bateman out there Gavin Newsom out there in California. Because you got these. Yeah, you siphon off so much of the vote. It doesn't take that much to win different primaries. And so he's going to, 25, 30%. You're good to go.
Somebody on Twitter said with this many candidates, they should not have it, the usual. It should be like the NCAA brackets, just like head to head and kind of elimination. But I think Newsom could say, based on his fundraising, his reputation, all that kind of stuff, really he's terrible, of course. But based on name ID alone, he should, get a first round bye.
Yeah, probably. Or he has to play the 16 seed like Gillibrand in the first round.
Gillibrand versus Slotkin or something, right? That's
yes. Oh man, we're really going to do this again. Yeah, there's a lot of people who shouldn't run, except for Schmidlap. He should definitely run.
Schmidlap, yeah.
Anyway, we'll see how many end up getting in. About a year from now, a lot of these people are going to be ready to do that with their exploratory committees. So get ready. Anyway, have a good day. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, Greg.
Jim Garrity, National Review. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. Thanks so much for being with us today. Please be sure to subscribe to the podcast if you don't already, and tell your friends about us as well. We'd love to have them listening. Thanks for your 5-star ratings and your kind reviews. Please keep those coming. Get us on your home devices. All you have to say is play 3 Martini Lunch Podcast. Follow us both on X. He's at Jim Garrity. I'm at Greg Corombos. And also now Facebook and Instagram. Have a terrific Tuesday. Join us again on Wednesday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.